Let's get into that first story. You know, when I first saw this morning, the story about them leaking text messages, I got really angry because I am disgusted by these establishment shills, these disgusting, vile creatures of Congress. They're cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers who have lurched up from the underground, crawled into Congress, and we just sit back and we're like, yeah, I guess we'll keep voting for these people. But hopefully now people are waking up and they will vote out all of these people, especially people like Liz Cheney. From the story from The Independent, Donald Trump Jr. sent desperate texts to Mark Meadows during Capitol riot urging Trump to take action. He has to lead now. Revelation of texts come as committee votes to support contempt of Congress charge for former chief of staff. Did I say these people are absolutely vile and disgusting? Because I'll just keep saying it. Now, that being said, the release of these texts, Donald Trump Jr. was urging Mark Meadows to get his dad to condemn the riot at the Capitol. Sounds like they did not want it to happen. Sounds like all of these people in Trump's inner circle were like, yo, stop this. And then Trump came out and issued a statement saying that it was wrong and to go home peacefully. So they just effectively debunked their whole narrative. If that's the case, why should any of this continue?
Total clown show. I mean, in a moral civilization, a moral America, Liz Cheney would be shunned from society. I see her picture on the screen there. As a foreign policy guy, I can tell you all the wars she supported, all the military armament for the military-industrial complex, for all of these special interests. Liz Cheney has the worst of the worst record, and the idea that she's like playing along, it shows that there's really there's two parties in America. There's the Uniparty represented by Liz Cheney. She is a member in good standing. Unfortunately, most of the establishment Republicans and people in charge are also part of that Uniparty. And then you have Nancy Pelosi. And this January 6th committee is utterly ridiculous. And the fact that she's like supposed to be like the Republican side making it authentic, it's absurd.
They're like bipartisan support for, contempt of Congress or whatever.
The text messages don't really prove an insurrection. More about everyone kind of panicking, be like, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. So it's just absurd to see them still complaining, because this obviously disproves everything that they were talking about. They claimed that this was orchestrated, this was all planned. They try to take... obviously, through the text messages, this is not true. We're also learning today that the DC Attorney General is going to be suing the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers because of the January 6th attack. So, to me, this is all about just the total dominance of political power in the establishment to keep it with themselves and to make sure that, of course, Trump doesn't have any political power going forward in the next election. There's also going to be local elections, and I think they're just kind of fishing for whatever they could get so they could hit the other side. The other side isn't just as good. Again, it's all about power. It's all about authority, and they're trying to consolidate as much of it as they can, and it's absolutely authoritarian than it is investigative at all. If we're going to investigate somebody, why not get the text messages of, Mr. Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell? Let's release that to the general public, or the videos or the footage that the FBI is holding to themselves. I would want to know that. I don't care what these people were doing, freaking out. I think the worst person in Congress is probably Mitch McConnell. And absolutely.
Then the reason I say that over like Nancy Pelosi or whatever, it's like Nancy Pelosi's overt. What is it saying? The better the devil you know.
Yep.
Like when Nancy Pelosi comes out and she's like, and her teeth are falling out and she rips up Trump's speech, I'm like, I can see the disdain. I can see the vile behavior. Mitch McConnell just like sticks his head in his shell and then does nothing. But people vote for him, and then you expect to get some kind of resistance, what the Democrats are doing. But he's effectively standing in the way of regular Americans as the Democrats, go and do their crackpot garbage. I think I don't remember who said this, but they said that the Republicans are the Washington Generals to the Democrats' Harlem Globetrotters.
Absolutely. And it's all faked. It's all rigged. It's all like world wrestling entertainment. I tweeted a photo today of Mitch McConnell elbow bumping Nancy Pelosi. And the caption read, if effing the poor people was a handshake, this would be it. And that's absolutely what they're doing. They're screwing over hardworking, average Americans who are just trying to live their lives, and they're playing this theater, this show, to try to convince you that the other side is the lesser of two evils. Meanwhile, they're working together in collusion. They're two heads of the same snake, and they are a den of vipers. They are sinister, reptilian-like beings that are cold-blooded and don't give a damn about you or your friends or your family or the future of this country. They are selling this country to the highest bidder, and you are getting screwed.
That's all figurative.
Do you think
Of course.
Do you think it's the people or the positions that turn the people into those things?
I think it's a combination of both, and it also depends on the individual. For example, Henry Kissinger, I think he's a corrupt, personal, sociopathic, crazy person that just thrives off of creating policies that create human misery for the benefit of his friends. That's my personal perspective and opinion. Other people, I believe, were entangled in the system, came into the system, and they were told, fix the system from the inside. Make it better. You could fix it just by being a part of it, but you just have to sell out on this small issue, and then this small issue, and then this small issue, and then they get them hanging out with Mr. Epstein. They get the videotapes of them, and then bada bing, bada boom, they got them in their pockets, a part of the larger extortion operation, and now they're coming to them saying, hey, we need this unpopular bill passed that's going to screw over your constituency. You're going to have to pass it, or we're going to release the dirt that we have on you. And that's essentially Washington, D.C. politics that we're seeing unfold right now, and a part of why so many unpopular policies get passed. That's one example of it. The other is just sociopathic individuals. The most amount of sociopaths are located per capita in Washington, D.C. for a specific reason.
What's that part of the brain where they say that sociopaths have like an underdeveloped or small one? The amygdala?
Amygdala?
Is it
That
the amygdala?
sounds right. I'm not sure.
I wonder if we could do like, is there like a CAT scan or MRI you can do on like members of Congress to make sure and be like, hey, look at that, they're all psycho.
And
They're
drug
all nuts.
test them. I want drug tests on all members of Congress.
Yes.
All right. I want term limits. I want all the restrictions they put on the general public, put on them.
Yeah.
But who votes on that? That's the problem, is that they need to vote for restrictions on themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not going to do it.
Of
They're
course.
Gonna, you know, it's like, this would actually be like a great sketch. It's like you get some principled politician, maybe like a Rand Paul or something, and he's like, I've got a new bill that says, you know, we're all going to have to undergo drug testing and anything we pass to the American people. And then you'll get like a bunch of politicians make, yeah, that sounds really, really good. And so we're going to vote on this bill, Rand Paul. It's a bill to give us a raise. Thanks, Rand Paul, for your time. All in favor of giving us a raise. And they all raise their hands. And then Rand is just sitting there going like, oh.
Well, some people argue that they should be given a raise so they won't be tools for the multinational corporations that buy them out. I think, you know, the best example, I think George Carlin was the one advocating for this. Put advertisements on their suits for whoever endorses them and gives them money, which they have to wear everwhere they go. I think that's more of an honest
It's a funny
perspective.
idea, but these companies will be like, they'll have dinner with the guy and be like, look, you know, here's a $100 plate, you know, on K Street. Hope you enjoy the steak. We need you to pass this bill because it's going to be really great for the production of our thing, you know, our product. And then maybe half a $1 million might find its way towards your super PAC.
Exactly. That's how it's
Even
done.
easier.
That's
You can
business.
you can have a lobbyist go and meet with Nancy Pelosi. Somehow she ends up worth hundreds of millions of dollars on a congressional salary. Congress is allowed to inside trade as long as there's like a little bit of room between them and their broker. I mean, the system that's set up is utterly absurd. They're abusing it. It's so ridiculous. It's such a farce. They're all taking part of it. I don't know if you saw, there was a news report today that all of these congressmen and senators are trading inside information on pharmaceutical companies. And they're just like kind of allowed to do it for some reason because they're the ones that make the rules. So they're never going to impose a limit on themselves unless there's like a giant national movement that says enough is enough.
I got it. You know, I'm thinking about how what would Ron Paul do? And he's always talking about competition. I say we create a second Congress to compete with the other Congress, and they pass rules on each other.
Maybe another country to compete with this. We need more competition in this country.
But the only way that would work is if there was free movement between the other country and people could choose to live there instead, which is actually true for a lot of countries, and nobody wants to go live there. So
Organized competition.
you know, Americans, I mean, you can move to a lot of places and they'll welcome you, and you don't got to do anything. You can just live there. I know people who just moved to Mexico, and Mexico's like awesome.
Yeah,
Great.
Yeah, and there's a lot of expats all over Latin America who are taking advantage of a lot of freedoms that they're granted, and also a lot of health care that usually is a lot better and a lot cheaper than it is here in the United States, especially in major urban areas. So there is a huge movement of expats, people expatriating even to Puerto Rico because of the tax liability that they're able to get away with down in Puerto Rico rather than, of course, in the United States. So there's been a huge movement of this, and I think it's only going to be kind of exacerbated, especially with countries like Mexico saying, hey, this mandate stuff is absolute nonsense. We don't believe in punishing our population. We don't believe in locking down our population. We believe in actually doing the right thing. And I think that Mexico has really had a kind of clear-headed approach towards this madness that we're dealing with. But back to this kind of hyper-politicization January 6th committee meeting, this is a sign of just, again, the political parties at odds with each other, using dirty tricks, abusing authority, because the Democrats, as we talked about on the show before, their literal stance on everything is like, hey, we're not Donald Trump. That's not a stance. That's not helping anyone. That's not doing anything. That's them complaining about somebody,
you got to clarify,
which is ridiculous.
It's not Democrat, Republican. It's like you were saying, Jordan, uniparty versus like populist, I guess.
Statist versus people who believe in freedom. And I think there's a whole bunch of statists, and I think that should be the true kind of political spectrum that we should be dealing with and talking about rather than left and right.
But one of the issues, I suppose, is that the progressives are typically like the populist left in this country aligns themselves more with the uniparty. Yep. So with the Republicans, you got some crazy Republicans, you got some weirdos, but the right-wing populists dominate the Republican Party right now. The left-wing populists are on the ground begging for scraps. And so what they do is they beg Hillary Clinton for the endorsement. They beg Joe Biden, and then Joe Biden's like, I'm gonna forgive student loan debt if you vote for me. And then all the leftists and all the progressives are like, yes, vote for Biden. And then Biden's like, you dumbass. I'm not forgiving anything. Yeah. And now the latest news is Joe Biden says he's not going to forgive any. Like, and we try to tell these young people, idealistic, starry-eyed, Joe Biden is not the man you think he is, but they vote for him anyway. They support the establishment. They like to defend massive multinational corporations and then act like they're the progressives. I got to tell you this. The weirdest thing to me is that all of us here, I'm assuming you, Jordan, I don't know your politics on free speech and stuff, but I think we're all to the left of Hassan Piker and Vosh when it comes to social media and big tech and corporate influences. Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to watch live, you can check out this channel Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Now, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and if you want more unfiltered and uncensored content with all of these guests, go to timcast.com and become a member. All of these guests you know and love in exclusive segments on our website where we are unrestricted in what we talk about, so you'll definitely not want to miss it. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all next time.